Welcome back to the Dayna Show. I'm your host, Dana Kaplan. Each week, I have the opportunity to sit with people from all walks of life who inspire, uplift, and shine an incredible light on our nation. In this episode, I had the privilege of sitting with Melissa Lantsman, who is Member of Parliament in Canada and one of the strongest supporters of Israel and Jews around the world. We talked about politics, we talk about the Canadian Jewish community, and we talked about a lot of other different things that are affecting both Israelis and Canadians today. Please like, subscribe, and follow. Am Yisrael Chai. Let's get into it. How you doing today?
Good, how are you?
I'm great. I'm great. Before I start the podcast, I usually bring up the hostages and say that we still have 50 hostages stuck in Gaza who are being held against their will, and we pray for their safe return every day, as well as the safety of our soldiers who are protecting us in Israel and allow us to do things like have a podcast and live free. That's what I usually say before we begin. And on that note, I would like
You're
to
you're in the hands of the bravest 20-year-olds in world history.
tell me about it. I have 2 boys fighting in the war, and,
Where are they? You know?
pardon me?
Where are they now?
One of them is in Gaza right now. One of them is at home, but he's going next week.
And do you hear from them? Do you hear from the one that's
Yeah, I hear from him from time to time whenever he's able to talk on the phone. So he'll send me a message, "I'm okay," just hi just I just want an emoji or anything, and
yeah, kind of anything and I guess this one's starting just now? Like, so
no, they're both in the reserves. I
okay.
I have a 28-year-old.
You don't look old enough to have people in the reserve.
Pardon me?
You don't look old enough to have 2 kids that far into the reserve.
Thank you, thank you. Well, I had them pretty young. I had my kid pretty young when I was 23. So, yeah. Anyway, here we go. Today, I am so proud to welcome Melissa Lantsman, Deputy Leader of Canada's Conservative Party under Pierre Poilievre, MP for Thornhill, a proud Jew, and a powerful voice for LGBTQ rights. Melissa shows what it means to lead with courage and conviction, standing up for her community and her equality. As someone who grew up in Toronto's Jewish community, this conversation feels especially meaningful for me. Melissa, thank you so much for joining me today on the Dayna Show. Thank you.
For having me so much, and hello to everyone who's watching.
Where are you today? Are you in Toronto?
I'm in my office in Thornhill. We're still on summer parliament break, and it's like if you had a really good arm and you threw a tennis ball into the neighborhood that's right adjacent to here, that's exactly where I grew up. So it's
Wow.
just a few minutes from my first home here.
Well, how does that feel?
Um,
Representing your home.
yeah, and it feels like particularly surreal sometimes. There's so many people that have left this this neighborhood, either for the obvious reason that they can't afford to live here, which is a big problem in Canada, or they've moved on and did life somewhere else. But it's surreal to be in all of these places and to visit all of these things. Like, I went to daycare here, and I think I'm the first MP who really spent my almost my entire life growing up here to represent this place. And that's just the natural sort of age and progression of Thornhill. Most of the homes here were built kind of like 40-ish years ago.
That's right. That's right. I remember when Thornhill was being built. I grew up in North York.
Yeah, well, that's the thing. Like you get a lot of stories of I moved here when I was a teenager, but I really moved here when I was a baby. So like going back to places like the Promenade, if you're listening and you know what that is, like the central spot in Thornhill, and going to this mall kind of like every week now and remembering what you did there as a kid, which made our stories that you don't really tell. But that's like it's more surreal.
I remember when the promenade was just built when it was brand new.
That's right.
Cool
Right.
prospect. Can you tell me a little bit about your upbringing, about your childhood? What made you the special person you are today?
Well, I don't
Of your
know that I don't know that you're any more special than I think some of the community that I'm really, really fortunate to represent. I think what makes this place special is how many special people there are, and I think it has a lot to do with the upbringing in this, what seems like a really, really big city, but a small community. Um, I'm part of a club that nobody wants to be part of as young as I am, and I'm part of the orphan club in so much as I lost both my parents. And, but, fond memories, like, they never really even left Thornhill after coming here, for the first time. Like, they sort of dwelled in this little enclave. And I grew up in a really, really sort of small and tight-knit family, like many do here, and I don't know what you would call like a really normal upbringing. We're like a normal middle class family who had everything everything that we absolutely needed, and certainly like lots of things that we wanted. And I did the normal things. I went to school here. I went to camp. We went on family vacations. I grew up at a time where there were no locks on the doors and everybody was like, hanging out on the streets and dwelling in other people's homes. And while the neighborhood has changed, the feeling in this place hasn't. And that was the kind of upbringing. I grew up in a like strong traditional home where school was important and fun was had, and we celebrated all of the things that needed to be, and we wanted to celebrate. And it was like a safe, sort of sheltered, existence. And, it gave my parents a lot of time to instill, the core values that I think drive a lot of the politics that I'm, part of, and I'm super thankful for them.
Did you always wanna be part of politics? Did you always wanted to get into it?
Yeah, it's bizarre. I also grew up and I should say my parents are immigrants. They came here I mean, it doesn't feel like that now, but they came here in the mid-70s, and they came here my dad came here as an uncredentialed engineer. My mom actually went to school here, so they had very different, sort of vocations, and very like, the world treated them different. My mom was a white collar professional. My dad was like a small business guy who, made do with whatever he could in order to support the family. Um, but I politics is not the kind of like vocation that immigrants see themselves as part of, right? Like these are big neo-Gothic buildings in Ottawa where very like important Canadians who have been here their entire lives go serve. So for them, it was just like, what are you talking about? And for my dad, it was a bit funny. My politics is a hobby. What are you going to actually do? For like, are you going to be a lawyer? Are you going to be a doctor? Are you going to be one of the four things that we know are signs of success? So they were, I would say, mildly supportive when it became an obsession, but they always wanted me to, do something else. And politics was what you could do when you had some additional time. But I think we got them on board by the end.
Yeah. Yeah, you're doing a fantastic job. I'm sure that if they're looking down now, they'll be really proud of you. I
I
wanted
think they would
I
be very surprised that I think they would be very surprised at the direction that the country is going versus the country that they came from and versus the country that they got to raise us in. It's very different today, and I think that's what makes the job more important.
Yeah, well, I was gonna touch upon that because, at this day and age, what's going on in Canada, in terms of the anti-Semitism, my grandparents are were Holocaust survivors. My grandmother from my father's side, fled from the pogroms in Ukraine at the beginning of the century. They would be turning over in their graves if they knew what was going on now. A lot of people in Toronto or in Canada are getting that same, flavor of pre-Holocaust, anti-Semitism and not being protected by their country. What do you have to say about that?
Look, I think your grandparents and I mean your history is obviously unique to you, but there were lots of people with that shared experience. And Part of what I think is I think that our grandparents, or in some cases great grandparents, or in some cases parents, would tell you, you know, "I told you so." Like, here are the warning signs about it. And when you're a kid and you grow up in this magical country where your uncredentialed engineer of a father and your mother can build a life where in the first generation you go from the front seat of a taxi, which is what he did when he came here, to the front row of Parliament Hill, you think those things can't happen. And you think that maybe grandma and grandpa were exaggerating, because it doesn't even compute that many people can allow this to happen. And then when you see the obvious, like, warning signs, that shouldn't take the moral clarity that is missing from all of the leadership here in Canada to see what's happening, you you would just think like, "Oh my goodness, they were right." And all of the stories, like, hit harder because in the one generation where we're obviously not that many Holocaust survivors left, to tell that firsthand account, the second that there isn't that firsthand account, the cycle starts again, and you didn't think that it would happen. That's what I think, I think that's what I think they would say, like, "I I told you, I warned you about this. I told you the stories. You know, I expected you to heed that warning, I think, a little bit better than you did." As an individual, as a community, as organized as the Jewish community is, and I think they would be, pretty upset that we didn't heed the warning.
What is the Canadian government doing now to help anti-Semitism, to prevent it, to punish it? What are they doing to help that history from not repeating itself in Canada?
Well, the answer is nothing. The answer is actually worse than nothing. I think they're stoking, the very division, in our society, and emboldening anti-Semitism by inexplicably, I don't know how else to say it, stupid positions that reward terror. Terror, you know, we talk about the obviously the 50 hostages that are still in the tunnels of hell, held by terrorists that have subjugated their own population to, complete misery and chaos. Um, I think they stoke that here, and they stoke it because it's politically convenient to do that. We've seen all the warning signs, and I get this because I get texts from, friends and family in Israel being like, "Are you guys okay?" And when you have people who are, in an active war on a number of fronts, or at least have been over the last 23 months, saying, "Are you okay in Canada?" Well, that's a bit of a wake-up call, and we saw it. We saw it with gunshots into schools, fire bombings into businesses, people Jewish people, visibly Jewish, father beat up in front of his children,
Right?
stopping things. Just this week, the Pride parade in Ottawa was, overtaken by protesters who believe that their rights trump the rights of others. Like, we see this all happening, and it's not even that the government's not doing anything to prevent it; it's that they won't even call it what it is. And then we have a real problem here. We have a real problem that a community who has been part of the fabric of Canada, feels the fear and anxiety that I don't think in modern Canadian history has ever been felt before.
Yeah, I mean, did a little bit of research, and the statistics of anti-Semitic events, 12,000 um, events since October 7th in
Yeah, well,
Canada.
and those are reported, right? You
Right.
you you have to assume that there are lots of people that are worried about their employment circumstances, who don't speak out. There is, fundamental, I think, lack of Jewish education in large swaths of the population. Some due to cost, some due to, choices, but people who don't know their history, who feel like maybe they're not equipped to stand up to it. When you get into these arguments, our schools, our universities, our unions, our police, all, like, infiltrated by this perversion of DEI that turns on its head the notion that that Jews or anti-Semitism in some cases even exist.
What do you think that the conservative government could do differently than the liberal government now in terms of protecting Jewish interests in Canada?
Well, look, I think there are lots of things that that could be done from a funding and security and infrastructure. And we have an infrastructure a security and infrastructure program for the Jewish community, frankly, for all communities, because I think this affects overwhelmingly the Jewish community, but there are other places of worship that are under attack in this country. So the obvious, more funding, more infrastructure for the actual physical protection and security of the population, but it's the enforcement of the very laws that we have on the books. It's getting rid of all of this nonsense. I don't know what other way to say it, but this woke culture that is again taken over our schools, our unions, our university, that that perverts the notion of oppressed and oppressor, and like we're we have lost our way in terms of the values of freedom, of democracy, of the rule of law, of order, and of Western values. Something that so many people came and still come to this country for. Um, and that's that. I think it's a different, entirely a different worldview of right and wrong, and one of moral clarity, and leadership starts from the top. So calling it what it is, I think, is the most important thing that we haven't seen from the federal government, or frankly from any government almost anywhere.
I grew up in Toronto and I had the most beautiful upbringing. I felt safe. I felt so safe that I didn't even know what danger was. Okay, I didn't even know what danger was. I had such an amazing upbringing, and now I see a lot of my friends that are still living there. They want to leave. They're afraid. They don't feel comfortable. They don't feel protected by the police and by the government there. What happens in Toronto if you have this mass aliyah from Canada to Israel? What happens to the Canadian economy? What happens to society at large if you don't have that Jewish community living there?
Oh, look, I think it's a reality for some people, and it's a reality for a lot of people who can't leave, and and in my case, who will never leave. Like, I'm never leaving this country that I think is the best country in the world, that has given me every single opportunity. I think it's worth fighting for, and you're free to make your own decisions, but I'm going to tell you why it's worth fighting for. It's worth fighting for because I think it's the best place to live in the world. I think that this country is built on common shared values of freedom, of democracy, and I think you can get all of those back. There's also a reality that drives people out of this country, that is a cost of living crisis, a crime crisis, an immigration a crisis, all that have not changed since the last election, and certainly have been exacerbated over the 10 years that the Liberals were in power. So there are lots of things that are driving both people, smart people, and capital out of this country. And I'm going to say this: I'm not going to make any comments about about those leaving, but I'm going to say to those that are here, have faith and keep fighting the fight, because it is worth fighting for Canada. Um, and for the Jewish community, we have been burned and gassed and tortured for thousands of years, and we have survived, and we will survive thousands more, singing the same songs on the same land in the same language. And I have no doubt that the perseverance of the Jewish community, wherever they are around the world, will continue to persevere in the face of this hatred and frankly lawlessness that we're seeing.
Every single one of my guests has mentioned that it not only is it important to live in Israel, but to have strong Jewish leaders all over the world. It's very important that we have representation all over the world. A lot of people think that maybe one day you'll be the next Prime Minister of Canada. What would that look like
Well,
having
the next Prime Minister of Canada is Pierre Poilievre, who I don't
I
think
know.
is a better ally um, on this issue and a better advocate for all of the issues that face young people and right through like the cycle of life of fairness, of true equality, of free speech, of putting you back in charge of your life, and to be to be on the team with a guy like that is something I'm thankful for. I'm going to tell you this, like you, I'm happy for those who live in Israel. I can never do it. I've never even contemplated. Um,
Have you ever been here?
yeah, I've been many, many times. In fact, I've been after October 7th. I came in November, right after
No.
October 7th. There is I think it's a wonderful place to visit, and I am glad that it exists for the for a homeland of the Jewish people with a Jewish majority. It's not it's not everybody's cup of tea in terms of living there. I am like fiercely, fiercely patriotic as a Canadian, and I see that my parents who ran away from communism chose this place, and it is this place who afforded us every opportunity imaginable. That if you worked hard, you can get ahead, you can raise a family in a safe neighborhood the way that you want it. And I want to ensure that the next generation of people who come here, of people who grew up here, people who've been here for a long time, still have that as a dream and a possibility. So no shade, but
Well,
you
I'll
do
tell
you.
you something. What's interesting, when I moved here, I moved to Israel about 30 years ago. When I moved here, everyone asked me when they asked me what my origin was, and I told them that I'm Canadian. They're like, "Why did you leave? Why would you leave Canada? It's the best country in the world." And it was really hard for me to explain why I left there.
And what's that today? I mean, I'm
Now
sure
people feel
sure you
bad
still
for me.
possibly
When
are
I
Canadian.
when I tell people that I'm Canadian now, they say they feel bad for me. They're sorry for me. They're sorry for what happened to Canada in the last 10 years, that there's been a decline in so many areas in Canada, not only for Jews, but like you said, for economy. I couldn't afford a house now if I moved back there, right? My kids wouldn't be able to afford a house. I know a lot of my friends there, they work their butts off and they can't make ends meet.
Yeah, it's
You know?
it is I think it is the cost of living crisis, and now of course we've got a trade war happening. We have a massive housing crisis that has been exacerbated over the last 10 years with a lack of supply. There's no shortage of things to fix, but I always tell people that all of these things are fixable, and I think that after after another election and a cycle of this, that Pierre and team will fix it.
We were all really sad that Pierre didn't win. We wanted him to win so badly. We all
Well,
voted.
the good news is he's back in the he's going to be back in the house when we come back in September, as a strong national voice for a new riding in Alberta. So we were very happy to see that, and we're happy with the coalition that we're building. You know, it's sort of if you looked at what conservatism used to be versus what it is today, you'll see young people, new Canadians, unions, tradespeople. 41% of the vote, 8 million Canadians voted for Pierre and his leadership in the Conservative Party. So there's a lot to build on, and I think we're gonna spend some time making sure that we hold the government to account on behalf of the 8 million that sent us there, and figure out how to grow that coalition into parts of Canadians who will hopefully see us as a future alternative and a government in waiting.
Do you think that it's a possibility with the amount of pro-Palestinians and Palestinians in Canada right now to get the majority vote to win the election?
Yeah, look, I don't think that people are, first of all, Canadians are not single issue voters. I think the anarchy and the chaos and the lawlessness that frankly is happening in our streets is telling, but I do still think that that's a small number. I think a government that is pandering to those who want to destabilize and divide our country is a choice. But I also think that people vote based on their interests, based on their kids being able to afford a home, based on having the life that they either came to or they grew up with. Um, I think, I think all of these crises, immigration, housing, cost of living, flight of capital and people, all of these are still very much pronounced and getting worse as the days go by. And I think that Canadians will see that for what it is and see that the 10 years of liberal leadership is just more of the same with a new face in the window and the same cabal of people. So yeah, I'm fortunate. I think that we can expand that coalition, and I think Tara's the right guy to do it.
Definitely. I agree. I'm crossing my fingers.
Yeah, and then maybe one day, I mean, 30 years is a long time to be gone, but maybe one day you return at least for our beautiful summer.
Listen, I do come back once in a while, but since October 7th, I've been reluctant to come back. I actually feel safer here than in Canada right now. I'm
There the thing that you say is I I had gone to Israel in November after the October 7th pogrom. And I was with a colleague from Calgary. Her name is Michelle Rempel. She's a big ally for the community, and she said the same thing. And we were walking in almost an empty Jerusalem, like really the feeling at that point. And I know that Israel's not back to the same, but it was really a point in history that I had never seen before. I never thought that I would see before. We were literally the only ones in the streets, and I wanted to just show her the old city. And so we took a walk and she's like, "You're not like nervous about this?" And and I said, just trust me. Like I know shortcuts. And we went to the strip, which was mostly closed, and we went to, we walked through many of the areas that are usually lively. And she said the same thing, even in November after October 7th. She's like, you know what, I have a feeling that it's safer here than it's going to be at home the next little while, and boy, was she ever right.
What's your favorite part of Israel, of being in Israel?
Like, selfishly, I'm going to say, the connection with family and friends. Um, we've got a first cousin there. We've got a really small family. Um, so it is, uh, despite all of the wonder and the beauty and the history and the the land, is still going to be hanging out with family and friends who have chosen there, and it doesn't even matter where we do it. I'm going to say this on the unpopular opinion. I'm going to say this on the podcast, but I'm much more a Tel Aviv dweller than anywhere else.
Do you speak Hebrew?
Very, very, very poorly.
Yeah.
If at all. I do speak Russian, and I do speak French, which is useful for this gig. And I grew up in a house and in a small family where nobody ever spoke one language properly, but it was a mix of all of the languages. I'm sure lots of people who are watching this can relate. Parents speaking one language, just speaking Yiddish with they're speaking Yiddish with their parents. There is like Hebrew involved because of a long stay in Israel on the way to Canada. There's French because of school, which nobody really truly understands, and then there's broken English. So I like to say that I speak many languages and none of them very proficiently. How
Are you
about you? Did you grow up in one of those houses?
Well, for sure. My grandparents spoke Yiddish and Polish. My other grandmother spoke Russian, and he we learned Hebrew in
Did,
school
did everybody understand each other somehow?
somehow. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Are you a proud Jew? Are you proud of your heritage?
Yeah, of course.
Yeah?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, absolutely. Look, I think that it's, like, fundamental to the values and upbringing. I study every single day still. I do 15 minutes in the morning with the rabbi. I'm still very involved in the community. I was a product of yes, I still can find the time, and it sets me on a day to remind me what matters, but I was a product of the organized Jewish community, in a way, uh, that many are. I was a product of the programs. I was a product of university Jewish life and camp and like obviously growing up in Thornhill. Um, so it is. I couldn't possibly delink it from anything that I do, but I'm fiercely other things too. I'm a child of immigrants. I'm fiercely proud Canadian. I've got like a whole bunch of like check boxes. But first and foremost, it is like the guide to who we are and how we learn.
Have you gotten any pushback in the government for being Jewish, especially during this time when there's a lot of anti-Israel rhetoric going on?
Well, I suspect I have. I'm an outspoken voice, but it doesn't. Whether you get pushback or not, there is right and wrong on this one. There's moral clarity, and there is my view. And I wasn't elected to hold the view of the majority. I was elected to represent my constituents, and I'm going to have my views. And if you disagree with me, like happy to chat with you. But I'm not going to change my mind on this one. I know exactly where I stand, and I'm not afraid to say it out loud.
Do you think the current government is pro-Palestinian? Or do you for political reasons, or do you think that because there's a lot of Muslims in Canada, more than Jews, that there's a deeper issue that
Government is very sneaky. I think this government says one thing to one group of people and another thing to another group of people. I think it says one thing in a synagogue, and I think it says a very different thing in a mosque. I think over the course of the last number of months, it's taken positions that we've never taken in the world, and that's things like recognition of a Palestinian state in the face of the worst terror attack in Jewish history since the Holocaust, which killed, by the way, 7 Canadians. Um, so, like, it is a government that does things to be politically expedient, rather than principled. So I don't know that it has a compass on what it is pro and what it is against. It is an entirely political decision that speaks to the masses, and I think that the government has lost control of what it has allowed, and frankly, what it has emboldened. And I think there are lots of sitting Liberal MPs um, who I don't really know how they get up and look in the mirror, representing the communities that they do while seeing all of this happen in our streets, in our schools, in our universities, in our unions, everywhere.
there's so much misinformation going around. I find it so hard as an Israeli to watch the news in Canada, to hear what people are saying about Israel. And I'm wondering, besides you, who you said you've come to visit Israel, are there any other members of the government who even bother to come to Israel to fact check about, the misinformation about genocide, about apartheid, about, not allowing in humanitarian aid? Does anybody fact check that information?
That would be I think that would be inconvenient to the storyline of the government. We had a prime minister who hadn't visited after October 7th. Look, eh, I think there is a deep rooted uh, anti-Israel bias that permeates again all of our institutions, government
Why? Why?
why
Yeah.
numbers, like politically expedient numbers. This is a narrative that has existed throughout history. I don't think you can like delink Zionism from anti-Semitism, even though it's under the guise of being having problems with policies of the government of Israel. This is outright Jew hatred in our streets, on our campuses, and there is no convincing anybody at any point anymore that this is anything but that. When you have people being beaten up in the streets, when you have schools that are shot at, that are now places where you want to instill fear in children, when you have businesses that are targeted with fire bombings, when you have graffiti written neighborhoods that are intimidated, that is nothing more than Jew hatred, and the very fact that it is frankly unprosecuted and allowed and emboldened by the positions of the government tells you everything you need to know about the direction of this government and this country. But I still believe that it is all fixable.
I hope so. What are the Jews now in the Jewish community supposed to do
Well,
now until Pierre is reelected?
look, I don't think that one person changes this overnight, although there are lots of policies that can change overnight. I don't think this goes away overnight. But just like you said, like there needs to be strong leadership in diaspora communities right across the country. There needs to be a community that is willing to fight. And the things that you've seen in the Toronto community, the people that are going back to learning, to being involved in Jewish life, whether it's because they feel forced into it or because they feel invigorated under threat. Look, fear and anxiety has played out in ways that are beautiful as well for the community. I think more people today, at least in my orbit, are back to it, are involved in it. Jewish school enrollment in this country has never been higher. Groups have popped up, grassroots groups all over the place, doing different things with different speakers, engaging the community. The community has come out to really come out and fought on various issues where they've either felt excluded. I think the community needs to, supercharge that and never ever give up on the country that this is and the country that the Jewish community helped build.
So you're saying we still have hope?
Of course, we have hope. If I'm packing my bags, you probably should too. But I am nowhere near that. I think that this is all worth fighting for, and we've got allies in lots of other communities that believe that as well.
Do you think that you could be the next Jewish leader?
Well, I like to think I'm already a leader in the Jewish community, and I think until a time where we can get this country back in order under the guy that I work for, I'm very, very happy to play a very important role in that team. We've all got different roles, like a sports team. I've got an A on my jersey for assistant captain, and I think it's a super important role that I'm like honored and humbled every single day to do, and I'm gonna keep doing it. Got lots of time to disappoint everybody, but for now, we're gonna work hard at making sure that we can turn this country around. So yeah, lots of hope.
I've heard so many amazing things about you, Melissa, and I feel so much better knowing that you're in our corner there. I want to see Toronto, come back to the way it was. It was like I keep saying, because the way that I grew up really is part of my fiber. It has helped me throughout my whole life, and was such a privilege to have that kind of upbringing and safety. And I hope that it is something that we can recreate, or we can continue in this generation.
Absolutely, common sense prevails, and then there are lots of people fighting to rebuild the country that we once knew and all still love. Maybe to the point where even after 30 some odd years of being gone, you'll think about coming back.
I'll definitely come
That's
to
the goal.
visit. I'll definitely come to visit. I've invested so much in living here. On October 7th, when my boys went to fight, I think I had some kind of like a nervous breakdown. It was the first time that I ever had to really like put my life on the line. I felt like I was sacrificing my children. I knowing that there was a chance that they wouldn't come home. I have a lot of neighbors whose children have been killed or seriously injured, and we pay for this country with our lives, you know. And
Yeah,
so
I
I've
can't
invested
imagine the
lots
sense
of
of
here.
security. I can't imagine the sense of security being shaken in that way. We talked about a little bit off camera before we started about your sons and their sacrifice, and frankly the sacrifice of entire generation. Millennials that we often make fun of for avocado toast on the patios of Tel Aviv are right now on the forefront of protecting Western democracy worldwide, not just for the security of the people of Israel, but for but against threats like Iran, who are destabilizing to the entire world. And I think there are lots of people in the diaspora and all over the world praying for them.
Listen, Israel is the nucleus of the Jewish world, and we're not only fighting for ourselves, but we're fighting for Western civilization. We're fighting for people all around the world because we know here that it starts off with the Jews, but it's not only the Jewish people that unfortunately the Islamic regime is after. They're after
They come for the Sunday people next, right?
pardon me?
They come for the Sunday people next, and I think there are lots of lots of people in the world that are seeing this in terms of the outright terror, which is unfortunately being celebrated in the streets in the West with flags and genocidal chants against their own people in a way that I couldn't even imagine this in my wildest dreams. It's become so commonplace and so acceptable.
I know it's really crazy. And is Canada still accepting immigrants from these countries, from these Islamic countries?
Yeah, look, Canada has obviously a very generous immigration policy, but it's been completely out of control and broken over the last 10 years. We've called on from our perspective strict limits, and particularly the inflow of asylum seekers, irrational students who, after they've stayed and studied, are overstay their welcome. We have a government that has seriously screwed up the immigration system, where it's now pressure on our housing, on our healthcare, on the job market in a way that we haven't seen. So we're gonna be talking a lot about that when the House comes back in September. So stay tuned if you're paying attention to Canadian politics. It is far more exciting than what some of the movies portray, and you can hear me as a voice in those politics for, I think, for reason and moral clarity. So know that whether you live here or not, I'm fighting a good fight.
I know that United States under Donald Trump has really put a squeeze on immigration, is really trying to change the immigration, and it's starting to deport a lot of people. Do you think that Canada will follow suit?
We are very, very different countries
I
with
know,
very,
I
very
know.
different very different needs. Look, I think that if you are committing a crime, if you are if you should not be welcome in Canada, and you should be sent back. But we've got a much bigger problem at the high numbers of people coming in here under the guise of studying in these fake colleges that have been set up. Like, we've got a lot to clean up here. And I think that starts with the recognition and making that data available to Canadians to see how wrong this has gone. And Canadians can, for the first time, can feel it. And the majority of Canadians agree that something needs to change in that system.
Melissa, I want to thank you so much for coming here, for coming on the show today.
Thanks
I
for
just
having me.
nostalgic seeing you, hearing your Canadian accents. Oh, I just fills me with like a sense of longing. I want to come back.
Okay, well, you're welcome to come visit, and for anyone on this who's watching, this this country is worth fighting for, and we're going to fight for it. So you can come visit, you can come stay, you can come contribute to the amazing things that Canada has to offer the world.
And it's likewise for you too. Anytime you're in Israel, you're welcome to come here.
Maybe we'll do this in person in the studio.
Hang out. So I want to just finish off by singing a little bit of the anthem because I'm so nostalgic. God keep our land glorious and free. Oh, Canada, we stand on guard for thee. Oh, Canada, we stand on guard for thee.
Very nice. I'm ready for your arrival.
I still remember it.
All right. Well, thank you very much for having me.
Yeah, good luck. And regards to Pierre.
Absolutely.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you for tuning in to this week's episode of The Dayna Show. If you like what you heard, you can subscribe to the podcast, like and share with your friends on social media, and rate us 5 stars. Don't forget to tune in next week, and we'll see you then.